Due to the aging population and the increasing number of single-person households, more and more people are owning pets. How much money do Korean people spend on their pets? Exports by Korea's venture-backed companies reached an all-time high in terms of value last year. What is behind this, and what measures can foster and globalize Korea's venture companies? Smartwatch is the first wearable device to be commercialized. What variety of functions does it have? Endless research on purifying water. We will find out what core strategies water purifier maker Hanilworld has. Family reunions dramatically took place for the first time in 4 years. Can family reunions be held regularly in the future?
Hello, I'm Andrew Salmon and welcome to Bizline. Now, Korea's giant conglomerates are well known worldwide for their exports, but they're not the only sector of the Korean economy engaged in selling globally. Take ventures. 2013 was a vintage year for the venture sector, which saw more exports than ever before. So, is a spring breeze blowing through the venture sector? We'll find out. We'll also be looking at the potential market for wearable smart devices. We'll be asking whether, in the wake of the recent inter-Korean divided family reunions, Seoul-Pyongyang ties may improve looking forward. So, do stay with us. But before we go to those and other features, let's first take a look at all the breaking business and economic news hitting headlines across Korea this week.
President Park Geun-hye vowed to raise the nation's potential economic growth rate to above 4% and per capita income to $40,000 by the year 2017. She put forth 3 goals: creating an economy with strong fundamentals, making an innovative and dynamic economy, and establishing an economy that balances domestic demand and exports. The president also promised to increase investment in research and development to 5% of the country's GDP by 2017. Boosting domestic demand also comes as an important part of her goal for a balanced economy. Korea and Australia have signed a currency swap deal worth $4.5 billion in a move to boost trade and help curb currency swings. According to the Bank of Korea, the deal signed by the country's central bank governors will allow the two nations to purchase and repurchase each other's currency up to 5 trillion won or 5 billion Australian dollars. The 3-year deal, which is renewable upon agreement, will allow greater flexibility for businesses to use local currencies for trade that have been commonly settled in U.S. dollars. The latest data shows the richest 20% of Korean families now spend nearly 7 times more money on education than the bottom 20%. Statistics Korea says that the top 20% spent over $470 a month on education last year, compared to the lowest 20% who spent just over $70 a month. Experts say high-income families spend more on education so their children can maintain or improve the family's social status.
Korean families are getting smaller as society transitions from the traditional extended family to the modern nuclear family. But in one sense at least, families are getting new members. Research indicates that in this nation of 50 million people, there are now 10 million pets. Accordingly, more people are spending ever more money on these household animals. What are they buying and how much are they spending? Let's take a look.
Even under the times of global economic difficulties, the pet industry is growing and flourishing, and Korea is no exception. It is a frequent sight seeing people walking with a pet, and an animal hospital is located practically in every neighborhood. There is even a pet shop at the entrance of every superstore where people usually shop for their daily groceries. For Koreans, their favorite pet is none other than puppies. Recently, favorite pets have added variations, including cats, rabbits, and fish. For people who prefer smaller sized pets, hamsters and lizards are popular as well.
현재 고양이 2마리 키우고 있고요. 그리고 현재 지금 제가 또 하나 키우고 싶은 거는 물고기고. 그래서 지금 물고기 매장에 와서 이렇게 물고기를 돌려보고 있거든요.
Statistics show that there are 3.59 million households in Korea with pets, which is 18% of the total in the country. A rise in one-person households and the aging society have resulted in isolation, and people are opting to replace voids in families by finding pets.
강아지를 통해서 애정이라는 것도 느끼게 되고 애착도 느끼게 되고 그 강아지를 이제 어떻게 키워야 될지도 생각해 볼 수 있을 것 같아서 동물에 대한 사랑도 알 수 있을 것 같고 해서 한번 생각해 보고 있습니다.
Jong Da-bin is raising a dog, and she visited a multi-pet shop to groom her dog named Dove. The shop offers various services, including grooming, schooling, and hospital care for her dog.
저희 한 일주일에 한 3번 정도 이용하고요. 3번 올 때마다 미용이나 의료랑 같이 이용하는 편이에요.
Ms. Jong considers her Dove like a family member, more than just a pet, and is very keen on how Dove looks. On the day of the visit to the shop, Dove received beauty treatment and a regular checkup, which included skin consultation. After the beauty treatment, she shops for her pet items.
네, 샴푸를 사러 왔는데 우리 도부가 피부가 좀 건조해요. 그래가지고 여기 앞에 있는 설명 읽어보니까 건조한 피부에 좋다고 해가지고 이걸 사려고요.
Other than visits to the beauty shop and animal hospital, Ms. Jong also spends money to purchase food, accessories, and toys for her Dove, which amounts to about $500 a month on average.
도부 같은 경우에는 항상 제가 외로울 때나 집에서 심심할 때나 제 옆에 항상 같이 있어주고 저 또한 그러고 저희 부모님도 그것 때문에 도부한테 많이 의지를 하는 편이에요. 그리고 제 소득의 한 30% 정도는 애기한테 꼬박꼬박 지출하는 편이에요.
A study shows that for total households in Korea, expenditure on pets amounts to about $45 on average, which breaks down to about $28 on pet items and $17 for related services. In 1990, the amount was $6, which rose to about $11 in 2000 and again to more than $30 a decade later. In 2012, it was around $45. The amount has been on a consistent rise, averaging 11% per year since the turn of the millennium.
1인 가족이 늘어나고 고령화 시대가 접어들고 핵가족화가 되고 하면 사람들은 사람들하고 어울려 있으면서도 고독함을 느끼게 되는 거죠. 그런데 그런 부분들을 반려동물들이 채워주는 거죠. 사람을 애로움을 달래주는 데 있어서 반려동물만한 것이 없다고 생각하거든요. 그래서 앞으로 더 반려동물들을 키우는 가정은 늘어나게 될 것이고 반려인들이 늘어나면 그만큼 그 산업의 규모도 커질 거라고 생각합니다.
The pet industry represents a country's status in economic development. A report shows that when the gross domestic product reaches $10,000 per capita, the pet culture takes form. At the $20,000 level, the pet culture begins to develop, and at $30,000, personification of pets takes place. Pet-related expenditure in the US took 0.34% of the GDP, while in Japan it took 0.3%. It was 4 to 5 folds higher than in Korea, which was 0.07%. Korea's current GDP per capita is $23,679, and the pet industry is in full development, such as pet schools and funerals, which shows that people have begun to treat their pets like humans.
반려동물은 가족이란 뜻이거든요. 가족은 사람이잖아요. 그래서 지금은 반려동물들이 누리는 게 사람이 누리는 걸 다 누릴 수 있게 해주는 거죠. 의료뿐만 아니라 요즘에는 뭐 장려, 그리고 아까 말씀드린 유치원, 교육, 그런 모든 것들을 사람이 누리는 것처럼 반려동물도 누리고 있습니다. 그런 것들이 이제 산업이 커가는 원동력이 되지 않을까 싶습니다.
In Korea, the pet-related market is estimated to be around $900 million. With the rise in one-person households and further aging of society, the market is expected to grow.
한 2020년경에는 한 6조 원 정도에 이를 걸로 보이는데 이제 독신 가구나 이제 혼자 사는 외로운 사람들이 많기 때문에 그 사람들 수요가 늘어서 굉장히 많이 클 걸로 보입니다. 우리나라도 자체적인 애완동물 관련 산업들이 발달해서 뭐 블루오션처럼 큰 그 틈새 시장으로 발달할 가능성이 큽니다.
Modernized society has left people feeling lonely, and animal companionship is filling that emptiness. The global trend is bringing strong growth in the pet industry. Compared to other developed countries, Korea's pet industry is still in the developing stage. But the market looks to be promising as pets are being welcomed as part of the family and becoming loyal, trustful friends.
Korea's venture industry first got off the ground in the wake of the Asian financial crisis at the end of the 1990s. But when the dot-com bubble burst, it was devastation. The venture sector was virtually wiped out for over a decade. But now, it's back. 2013 marked the best ever year for Korea's venture companies' exports. So, what is the situation? What is the outlook for the venture sector? We have an expert to answer these and related questions. He's a special ombudsman at the Small and Medium Enterprise Office, Dr. Moon-kyum. Welcome to Bizline.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me start with a very, very basic question. What differentiates a venture company from any small business startup?
Actually, when we say small business startup,
Yeah,
that is just means the usual business.
right.
Whatever it is, they can make or they can sell whatever they can sell. However, when we say venture, that is kind of a special company based upon high technology. Also, it has kind of a characteristic of high risk and high return. That's the basic feature of the venture business.
Okay,
Actually, venture came from the word of adventure.
gotcha. Okay. Now, a little bit of history as well. Korea's venture industry, I think, really first got started at the end of the 1990s, but then a spectacular boom and an equally spectacular bust. What went wrong? What happened?
Korea experienced a very bad situation
Yeah.
in 1997.
Right.
We call that IMF crisis
The Asian
because
financial crisis.
we borrowed a lot of money from the International Monetary Fund, IMF.
Yeah.
Then after that, the Korean government said our new economic growth engine could come from the venture businesses,
Right.
rather than big companies like Samsung or LG,
Gotcha.
Daewoo. So at the time, many big companies collapsed. And then people think, or people wanted to believe, that venture business our new exit for the more growth. So everybody was crazy for investing in
Into
venture
ventures,
businesses. They do not raise any question. If that is looks like a venture, then they
Just
put the money.
in.
But however, the company's sustainable ability came from the profitability. Unless they can make money, they fail.
Right.
So that's the story. So in a 2 year, like actually venture boom started 1998, and then the dot-com bubble started to burst in the year of 2000.
Yeah.
So just a 2 years period.
And then,
So that's a dramatic changes.
but there were some survivors, were there not? I mean, Naver, Daum, the portals, some of
Just
the
a few.
gaming companies.
Yes.
Very few, small
That's
number.
right.
Okay. That was then, this is now. 2013, we saw a record year for venture exports, according to data from the Korea International Trade Association. What's happened? Has it been a big turnaround?
Korean entrepreneurs, especially the venture businessmen, learned a lot from the lessons from the 2000 dot-com bubble burst.
Yeah.
So they learned they must have a good business model which can make a profit. Then the second one is the Korean market is too small. So the venture business is supposed to be global. So global orientation.
Yeah.
Then third one is we'd better utilize our own the capability. I mean the IT something.
Yeah, sure.
So that's why the Korean venture businesses concentrated on these topics.
Gotcha.
So that they can make the big growth these years. Also, this government, Park Geun-hye government, they put a lot of efforts into the boosting the venture businesses.
Sure, we'll come to that in a moment. But I understand that part of the venture boom, of course, is the boom in venture capital. We're seeing a lot of angel investors, the kind of small players who put money into these firms. Why is this happening at this time?
There is two key requirements for the success of a venture. One is a kind of a fund for startup stage. The second one is exit, the strategy. Then the funding for the startup is not an easy topic. The reason is naturally venture has a high risk. So everybody is reluctant to put their own money in the high risk businesses. So that we have the financial scheme, that is a venture capital. But in Korea, actually venture capital industry also devastated during the dot-com bubble, the period. Government made the fund of funds. Have you heard of the fund of funds?
A fund of funds,
yes.
a collection of various different funds that's invested.
Government put a lot of money to make a fund of funds. Then fund of funds...
In the capital markets.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
The fund of funds distribute to many the venture capital investment corporation. So each venture capital corporation has kind of specialized areas like a bio, IT, kind of cars and whatever. Yes.
But do you think that the current generation of ventures is built on a stronger foundation than the first generation back in 99, 2000?
Actually, I absolutely think the second generation is much stronger than the first generation. As I told you, they learned some lessons. Also, government has a more sophisticated and the financial schemes. And another one is there's a new financial strategies, such as crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding?
Yes. The small investor, a lot of investors, they put the small amount of money, so which make a big money to move the companies.
Okay. There are some considerable obstacles to ventures in Korea, which has traditionally been such a top-heavy kind of economy. Let's discuss them one by one. Capital availability. You've mentioned the government is creating funds, but where else can ventures access venture capital?
In terms of capital availability, there is no problem. Actually, Korean government assigned 4,000 billion Korean won to support the venture businesses.
Right.
So that's a special 3-year economic development program initiated by this government.
When does that kick off from? When does that start?
This
It's already
year.
started? This
year.
Okay.
This year. So that the availability of fund is no problem. No problem. But problem is, it's really hard for the venture capitalist to find right companies. I mean, capable companies. It's kind of idea competition programs. So once one idea move through the competition, and then they can get the fund.
They can access the funding
from that special policy fund. Also, they're from the venture capitalist.
Okay, speaking of business plans, business need a good environment to work in. Is there broad regulatory support for ventures?
In terms of regulation, this government put a lot of efforts to get rid of the regulation and the red tapes, so that it is okay. But the one problem is, there is no reasonable exit strategy.
What do you mean by exit strategy?
kind of harvesting the investments from the investor's point of view.
Oh, okay. So for the investors to
if you put your money,
Yeah.
you must get back
Right.
your original investment's profit. But usually there is a two-way to the harvest the original investments. One is IPO, initial public offering. So that is going to the stock market.
Yeah.
The second one is M&A. But actually, IPO takes a long time. The statistics says at least 7 years from the startup going to the Nasdaq. It takes usually 7 years.
Yeah.
It's too long for the investor's point of view. But the better one is merger and acquisition. Actually, in the United States, there are a lot of the merger and acquisition activities initiated by the Google or MS or whatever. However, in Korea, it is really hard to make M&A market. Like Samsung and LG, they do not purchase the small venture companies. Rather, they just pick the technician.
Key technicians and
So it's kind of culture.
Yeah.
So that's why we have a win-win the organization. Have you heard of that?
Fill us in.
In Korea, we call it 동반성장. 동반성장 means growth together. So that is a private organization. So which deals with the conflicts between large companies and small companies.
Because I mean, what you mentioned just now is something the ventures I speak to are very, very concerned about. Either their ideas, their technologies, or as you say, some of their key staff will be poached by the big boys. How is this situation being resolved through this body?
This kind of all efforts actually initiated by the governments.
Yeah.
So one of the features of the Korean venture companies is the venture industries, the venture capitalists, even the kind of conflict resolution body, all of these are initiated by the government.
Okay. This is fairly new, is it not? Has this been road tested yet?
Actually, Korean people has a kind of the characteristic to do something very quickly.
I know. Yeah.
So that's why it's kind of a push policy by the government. So I believe establishing culture takes time. So M&A is kind of culture. Of course, the basic feature is a kind of financial strategy. However, background is kind of culture.
It's mindset. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
So I believe it'll take some time.
Okay. Another issue for any small company, but I guess particularly for ventures during their incubation period, is accessing business support services, accounting, consulting, marketing, and so forth. Is there an institution or a body in place that helps supply these to, smart, promising ventures?
Of course, there is too many and too much.
Too many?
Yes, too many and too much the support from the SBA.
SBA?
Actually, SBA is an American expression. In Korea, it's MBAs. Small and medium.
Business administration.
That's right.
Okay.
So actually, we designed many programs to support the SMEs. But the problem is, the small and medium companies has a tendency to rely on too much on the government.
Yeah.
Yes, rather than its own bootstrapping. So that's why I believe we must boost the entrepreneurship,
right,
rather than relying on the government policies.
I was speaking to an investment banker the other day. He says that he thinks one of the biggest problems in the business environment is there are very, very few models of first-generation entrepreneurs who are actually producing smart products and are successful venture capitalists at the moment. Again, most of the business sort of heroes of Korea are now second or third generation inheritors. Is that significant as an issue, do you believe? Do we need these kind of up-and-coming models who are out in the public?
The venture business promoted by the entrepreneurship is really important because the large companies like Samsung, LG do not make the many job opportunities
anymore, right?
That is, big companies are too much advanced, so they do not need many people.
They're automated and they're
Yes.
offshoring. Yeah.
So the venture business and boosting venture businesses only exit for the Korean people to make the job opportunities. In terms of that, the government tries a lot of efforts to kind of the subsidies and grants, also the policy fund to support the venture businesses.
Well, it sounds like the infrastructure's in place. It's just time for Korean entrepreneurs to get up and start running. But
right.
speaking of that, I mean, again, more government issues. President Park today gave a pretty long, detailed speech about more measures to boost the venture industry. What was your takeaway from that speech?
As I told you, first one is we better make the middle. We must have a kind of system of the middle harvesting the strategy, like M&A. That's the key things. Then second one is we must get rid of more regulation and red tapes. The most significant one is the joint guarantee. Actually, corporation body is legal entity, right?
Sure.
Corporation is itself the entity which can borrow the money or pay back the money, whatever.
Yeah.
They can do that. But however, in Korea, the entrepreneur also individually guarantee the debt.
Right.
In addition to the corporation guarantee. So we call that as a joint guarantee. Yes.
Okay.
So once the corporation fail, entrepreneur also fails.
Yeah.
They never.
And can they ever access capital again after a single failure?
Yes, that's right. So we must get rid of that kind of things.
That's a mindset. Okay. So some pretty significant challenges for the venture sector looking ahead, but it looks like the infrastructure is in place and the future may be promising. Dr. Kim, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for being on Bizline.
Okay, thank you very much.
Speak to you again. Smart technologies are booming worldwide, but the smartphone market is looking increasingly saturated. Fortunately, there is a potential new growth engine on the horizon among smart devices, and that is for the wearable device. And among the first generation of wearable devices, the most prominent is the smartwatch. But has this market been overhyped, or are wrists going to be the smart new location for smart device manufacturers? Let's take a look.
What is the next generation smart device that will come after smartphones? They are wearable devices that you can put on. Among them, smartwatches are popularized first in drawing attention from the ICT industry. They vary considerably in price, function, and design. Let's meet the smartwatches widely opening the age of the first generation wearables. An office worker recently bought a smartwatch. Without taking out a smartphone, the user can check text messages, emails, as well as SNS like Twitter and Facebook. Smartwatches come in handy as the user can easily send text messages even during a meeting.
회의 시간이나 전화를 받기 곤란한 상황에서 이렇게 간단하게 제가 문자를 확인한다든지 SNS 피드를 볼 수 있는 그런 기능들이 저한테는 굉장히 편리하게 느껴졌습니다.
Last year, Samsung Galaxy Gear opened the door of the smartwatch market for the first time. On top of its original function of checking time, users can easily make or receive calls through the speaker in the back of the Gear without taking out their smartphones. Users can send text messages using their voice only without touching the device. Amid mixed responses on Samsung's Galaxy Gear, a new version of Gear 2 debuted recently at the latest Mobile World Congress, or MWC 2014. Based on Samsung's self-developed operating system Tizen, it emphasized familiarity as a wearable device by reducing weight, increasing battery runtime, and enhancing designs. As a pioneer, Samsung had a dominant market share in the smartwatch market in the latter half of last year. It certainly seems to have opened the door of the smartwatch market.
스마트폰과 연관된 보안제재 역할로 와치류가 많이 사용될 수도 있고 또 사람들이 선택하는 데 있어서 큰 부담이 없는 가격대인 10만 원에서 20만 원대로 형성하고 있다고 보고 있습니다. 기능이 완벽하게 어느 정도 구성되어 있는 웨어러블 기기로 보면은 와치류가 가장 성능이 많이 올라와 있다라고 저희들이 보기 때문에 와치류가 많이 나오고 있습니다.
This is CES 2014, the world's largest consumer electronics show. Here, new types of smartwatches have been showcased. Among them, LG debuted LifeBand Touch, which emphasized its health management function. When a user rotates his or her arm, the device switches on automatically using gesture recognition. It even offers a coaching function beyond simply playing a role of physical activity scoreboard. When a smartwatch physically contacts a person's body, it can collect various information about a person's body, such as pulse, sweat, and body size. In fact, most of the IT companies added health management functions to their smartwatches.
헬스케어 관리 정보뿐만이 아니라 이 다양한 일상생활 정보를 분석하고 갖게 됨으로써 헬스케어 관리 기능 말고도 다른 다양한 서비스로까지 확장할 수 있는 그런 단초가 되기 때문에 헬스케어 관리 기능에 많은 관심들을 갖고 있는 것이 요즘 동향이라고 할 수 있습니다.
Meanwhile, a domestic small and medium-sized company rolled out a smartwatch with an emergency rescue function. When the user presses the SOS button in an emergency situation, text messages asking for emergency rescue as well as the user's GPS location will be sent to the user's 5 emergency contacts registered in advance.
SOS 기능은 스마트폰에 탑재된 GPS를 이용합니다. GPS를 이용하면 정확한 정보를 전송할 수 있습니다. 만약 사용자가 실내에 있어 GPS 정보를 받지 못할 경우에는 이동통신 기지국 및 와이파이 액세스 포인트를 이용하여 위치 정보를 전송하게 되어 있습니다.
The outlook for the smartwatch market is quite bright. In 2017, global shipments of smartwatches are likely to reach 45 million units. Like this, various products are being launched and the outlook for the market is also rosy, but it isn't sufficient for smartwatches to gain a large popularity like smartphones. Smartwatches have a battery running time much shorter than ordinary watches, and crude designs fit only for men. Moreover, users who are accustomed to smartphones need to get accustomed to smartwatch interfaces. These are the issues that must be solved.
사용자들이 손목에 착용했을 때 좀 더 넓은 화면을 구현할 수 있는 어떤 벤더블 디스플레이라든지 혹은 폴더블 디스플레이 같은 것들이 개발이 된다면 그리고 거기에 상응하는 배터리 수명까지도 뒷받침이 된다면 어느 정도 개선된 그런 폼팩터를 가진 스마트워치가 구현이 가능할 것 같습니다.
스마트폰을 대체하려면은 어떤 사람들이 볼 수 있는 가독성에서 홀로그램 같은 어떤 기술이 이제 확장이 돼갖고 그걸 일반적으로 사용이 가능하다라고 한다라고 하면은 읽기성에서 상당히 편리해질 수 있겠죠. 안에서 처리하는 그 퍼포먼스 자체는 현재도 상당히 높은 수준까지 올라와 있기 때문에 그 주변에서 사람들하고 접촉하는 인터페이스적인 면만 확장이 된다라고 하면 그와 같은 모든 거는 스마트폰을 쉽게 대체할 수 있다라고 저는 생각하고 있습니다.
If smartwatches can improve their weaknesses as an independent device and are popularized, what will be the wearable gadget that comes next? With a reasonable price and fresh charm, smartwatches are attracting more users. We wonder if they can also become the must-have item like smartphones.
Chugging 2 litres of water a day not only keeps your skin looking moist, it also keeps various diseases at bay. But hydration is not just about quantity, it's also about quality. You need to be drinking not any water, but pure water. So let's meet this week's hidden champion. It's a company which has achieved a world first by applying nanotechnology to water purification.
The human body is composed of 70% water. Even the slightest dehydration causes thirst, and it could even become a reason for obesity. Water is crucial in maintaining one's health. The severity of environmental pollution raised awareness of clean water for consumption, and more people around the world are opting to purchase water purifiers to drink water that they feel is safe. Kim Ji-ae, living near Seoul, is one of them, who is concerned about the purity of water.
물 끓이거나 그리고 뭐 약수터 같은 데서 물을 떠갖고 와도 저희가 물을 못 믿잖아요. 그러다 보니까 저는 아무래도 관리를 받을 수 있는 깨끗한 물을 먹기 위해서 정수기를 사용하게 된 것 같아요.
But the use of a water purifier can't solve all problems. Prolonged use of the machine can result in fungus growing in the water container, which is a big hygienic issue.
정수에 관련된 소비자 불만 중에는 관리 부실 등 위생 문제가 33.1%로 제일 높았고요. 관리가 어떻게 되는지 또는 관리할 때 필터 교체는 교체비가 어느 정도 들어가고 주기가 어떤지 이런 걸 꼼꼼히 따져서 관리를 잘하는 업체를 선정하는 게 중요합니다.
Many water purifying machine makers are working to improve hygienic issues, and one of those companies, Hanilworld, is being praised for a variety of patented technologies already applied on its products. So what is its special technology that assures safe and clean water all the time?
걸러주는 필터가 굉장히 중요하고요. 그 걸러진 물이 보관을 어디에다 하느냐, 그 저장고가 굉장히 중요합니다.
The main reason for hygienic issues derives from the filter not being able to separate polluted substance. Hanilworld was the first in Korea to install carbon nanotube in its filter to improve its function.
저희들이 CNT 기술을 접목한 필터로 바꿔보니까 품질이 균일하고 오래 사용을 해도 변화가 없고 물맛이 특히 좋아지고 그 다음에 이 수명 자체가 굉장히 길어지는 장점이 있고 수압에 영향을 받지 않는 그런 특징이 있습니다.
In fact, a study shows that carbon nanotube filter eliminated 99.9% of norovirus as well as E. coli that causes food poisoning, a groundbreaking technology in getting rid of a variety of germs and virus. Purified water is kept in a tank installed in the machine, and the company worked to prevent exposure to germs during storage. In 2012, Hanilworld became the first in Korea to develop ultraviolet real-time sterilizer, bringing a shockwave to the industry.
저장된 탱크에 혹시 공기 중에 돌아다니는 그 일반 세균이 첨착을 했을 때 그 일반 세균을 잡아줄 수 있는 방법이 없어요. 자외선 살균 장치가 탱크 내부를 살균을 하고 또 우리가 그 물을 마실 때 스파이럴 형태로 물이 돌아 나오면서 또 한 번 살균을 해서 나오기 때문에 미생물에 대해서는 100% 완전성을 갖춘 그러한 기술로 되어 있습니다.
Hanilworld's achievement doesn't end in solving hygienic issues. It is also being praised for improving water absorption by implementing bio-nanotechnology in the storage tank partition, which is first in the world. Bio-nanotechnology applied on the partition emits far-infrared light, which breaks down water molecule and helps our body to absorb water faster. As cleanliness is top priority in making water purifying machine, Hanilworld has built a so-called clean room production line to produce contamination-free machines. Being recognized for its efforts, Hanilworld sells its product in Japan and China, as well as other Asian countries. Hanilworld is now responsible for providing clean drinking water in 14 countries around the world. However, Hanilworld is not just satisfied at being a maker of water purifiers. It is in a constant endeavor to become a producer of home appliances that bring clean environment for our well-being.
국내뿐만 아니라 해외에다 많이 알려가지고 저희 회사의 이런 환경 가전에 꼭 필요한 정수기라든가 공기청정기라든가 뭐 이런 것들을 세계 시장에 좀 알리는 것이 저희 회사의 앞으로 글로벌화된 그런 목표가 되지 않겠나 생각됩니다.
The water purifier market in the world is growing sharply as the environment is getting more polluted. Hanilworld is expected to bring a new wave in the water purifier market around the globe with its distinctive technology after already having proven itself to the consumers in Korea.
It was an emotive and heart-wrenching spectacle as hundreds of family members, divided for 6 decades by the inter-Korean frontier, finally met for the first and probably the last time. After much political meandering, North and South Korea finally succeeded in holding divided family reunions. It was the first time such an event had been held in 4 years. Looking forward, could this event be used? Could we see family reunions become a regular event? Moreover, could it be leveraged to warm up the currently frigid ties between the two Koreas?
Hundreds of South and North Korean relatives met between February 20th and 25th for the first time in 6 decades. But they were given only about 11 hours to see each other during the meetings held in the North's scenic Mount Kumgang Resort. Without knowing when they could meet again, families clung to each other and broke into tears on the last day of the reunions. 85-year-old Lee Oh-hwan was one of them. She simply couldn't hold back her sorrow when she had to leave her 2 younger sisters in the North again. Lee realized that last week's reunion was likely the last chance to ever see or talk to her sisters before she dies.
눈물 흘리다가 얘기하다가 그러면은 그냥 금방 가고 면회 시간이 끝나시오. 이제 숙소로 갈 시간이에요. 또 이러고 데려가고. 그래서 전부 다 6번을 만나는데 우리는 4번밖에 못 만났잖아. 2번을 그래 내가 아파서 못 나갔어. 그래 이제 끝에 가서 뭐 만나야 되는데 그걸 못 만나서 이게 가슴이 아픈 거야 내가.
핵 문제나 다른 그 정치, 군사, 안보적인 이슈가 크다 보니까 이산가족 문제가 다소 좀 이렇게 좀 경치되어져 왔는데 가장 뭐 인도적인 차원의 문제로서 조속한 시일 내에 이산가족들이 빨리 가족이 만날 수 있도록 하는 것. 이게 사실 이제 분단의 아픔을 치유하는데 가장 첫걸음이다 이렇게 볼 수가 있겠습니다.
The reunions were originally planned last September, involving roughly 100 people from each of the Koreas. But it was abruptly canceled by the North, citing hostility by the South. Many elders had to give up meeting their loved ones this time because of poor health. Some of them have even passed away since September.
느닷없이 나을 앞두고 이게 중단이 됐다는 거야. 이러니 이게 어떻게 하면 좋아 이거를 응? 밥도 못 먹겠고 잠도 못 자겠고 뭐가 나을 앞두고 이렇게 됐으니까 어떻게 할 수가 없잖아. 못 만나겠지. 끝이 나겠지. 내가 이제 다시는 이제 안 되겠다 생각을 했어.
Most of the separated families, like E's, don't have much time to wait for reunions. Since 1988, nearly 130,000 South Koreans have put their names on a reunion waiting list. About 45% of them have already passed away. Among those who are still alive, more than half of them are over the age of 80, while 11% are even in their 90s, indicating why it is so urgent to hold reunions regularly. So far, only about 25,000 people have met their loved ones separated across the border through all forms of reunions, including video phone conversations.
이제 정말 시간이 없다. 좀 연로해서 지금 이 작년에 96명 가겠다는 분들이 지금 82명으로 말이지 그 사이에 그 돌아가시고 또 몸이 허약해서 참가하지 못하는 부분이 생기는데 하루빨리 이 이산가족 문제의 근본적인 해결을 위해서 전면적인 생사확인부터 해가자라는 생각이 듭니다.
The first reunions were held in 1985. Since the Inter-Korean Summit in the year 2000, the humanitarian events had taken place 18 times before it was suspended in 2010 following the North's shelling of a South Korean island near the border. But some people are also critical about the reunion that has been a one-time political event, allowing only a handful of separated families to meet.
상봉 행사를 하고 난 다음에 그 다음에 다시 만날 수 없는 허탈감 이런 부분 때문에 당사자들은 엄청난 이 마음에 짐과 힘겨움을 느끼는데 다른 분들이 볼 때는 상봉 행사장의 어떤 그 감격스러운 장면으로 이산가족의 문제가 뭔가 이제 해결되고 있구나라는 사고로 생각되기 때문에 이 부분이 참 안타까운 부분이다라고 생각을 합니다.
Experts on the inter-Korean issue say that both Koreas should start discussions immediately to establish a system allowing separated families to at least confirm whereabouts of their loved ones on the other side of the border and increase the number of reunions.
우선 그 남북 간의 이산가족 생사 확인이 가장 중요합니다. 그다음에 이제 중요한 것이 상봉 정리화를 통해 가지고 자주 만나야 되고요. 그리고 이제 한 번 만날 때마다 그 상봉 규모를 좀 늘릴 필요가 있다. 그리고 이제 더해서 서신 교환이 필요하고요. 그리고 이제 추가적으로 화상 상봉을 통해 가지고 좀 더 많은 사람들이 정기적으로 이산 가족들이 서로 대면할 수 있도록 그런 방법을 좀 강구할 필요가 있습니다.
But sour inter-Korean relations have prevented the neighboring countries from making any progress in the discussion about regular reunions. Pyongyang and Seoul have taken different approaches towards the separated family issues as well.
아무래도 이제 우리 남한 당국은 이산가족 문제는 순수한 인도주의적 사안이기 때문에 다른 문제와는 연관하지 않고 그 자체로서 이제 중요성을 이제 우리가 인식하고 있는데, 반면에 북한 같은 경우는 이제 이 이산가족 문제를 가지고 이제 정치나 군사, 안보적인 문제하고 항상 또 연계한다는 부분에 있어서 좀 차이점이 있습니다.
Amid recent signs of thawing inter-Korean relations, the rival countries will likely make some progress in discussions of some pending issues regarding cross-border separated families.
이번에 이산가족 상봉이 이제 이루어지고 추후 남북 간의 당국자 회담이 아마 계속 이어질 가능성이 높은데요. 그때는 아마 이산가족 상봉의 정례화 또 규모를 확대하는 부분이 보다 더 남북 당국자들 사이에 실무 차원에서 논의될 가능성이 높다고 보여집니다.
Lee feels the reunion with her two sisters was like a dream. It was such a joyful time, but also extremely short to talk about how each of them have lived while they were torn apart for 65 years.
이제 나 죽기 전에 이제 끝이지. 이제 못 가니까 이제 끝이고, 그래도 형제간들이라고 만났고, 우리 부모님이 어떻게 돌아가시고, 우리 동생이 어떻게 죽었으며 어디 살고 그런 거를 알아서 그래서 속이 후련해. 이제는 그래도 이제 눈에 밟혀도 이제 잠을 잘 수가 있을 것 같아. 이제는.
Lee says she has no regrets whatsoever if she was to die tomorrow.
못 가신 사람들한테는 진짜 제가 죄스러워. 나는 갔다 왔지만은 급하고 그래 테레비 보고 못 간 사람들이 얼마나 가슴이 아프고 한이 맺힐까. 그게 이제 걸리는 거야. 다들 그냥 언젠가는 가셨으면 좋겠는데 가서 만났으면 좋겠는데.
Time is one thing these separated families do not have a lot of. Reunions should not take place as a one-time political event, but the countries should engage in humanitarian talks.
And that's all we have time for on Bizline this week. But do join us again next week. We'll be looking at education, one of the great strengths of Korea's society and workforce, but also a grueling and expensive business. We'll be analysing how much it costs to put a child through the educational sausage grinder from elementary through to high school. But that's it for now. I'm Andrew Salmon. This was Bizline. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.